Hello there. Test. Good. 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 All right. Hello there. What is going on, everybody? We are live. And, yes, we are going to have a good time tonight. Wonder if my mic wasn't muted. Oh, well, I'll have to go fix that. But, hey, what's going on, Otis? What's going on, Jared? Jared came for cookies. You were told there would be cookies and punch. All I've got is Coke and Scotch. Not at the same time. Scotch for now. Coke for after. Coke for after. We got some interesting things to talk about today. We're going to be talking about Star Wars Legion. We're going to be talking about Star Wars Armada. We're going to be talking about some other games, too. Marvel Crisis Protocol a little bit, maybe. I just picked up some more expansions today. Might even be dipping my feet into some other games in the not-too-distant future, so that's also going to be pretty cool. Yeah, so that's going to be fun. We're going to have a good time tonight. Hello there to everybody joining. We got a lot of people coming to hang out today. As I was getting ready to set up this live stream, I looked. I looked at. Christian says you looked broken when you talked about Armada last time. Are you feeling better? Yes, I am feeling better. I was actually having a pretty bad day due to some other things, kind of separate from Armada. And but yeah, and so I was but yeah, we're it's okay. I'm doing better now. We've got some things lined up, and I think the Armada stuff just kind of helps relax some things. So yeah, no, I was getting ready to set up this particular live stream, and I noticed that last week's was called "The Sky Isn't Falling." AMG says everything's gonna be okay, and I was like, so that's why I put "Who Needs a Sky Anyway" as the title here. Skies are overrated. I mean, honestly, when was the last time you went to the sky? I mean, really, does anybody here fly? It's like, skies are definitely overrated. But no. So I'm definitely positive. So we're going to talk about Armada. We're going to talk about what exactly AMG said. And I want to also talk about the things that people are implying that what they said means. And also we're going to talk about the future of the community project and taking Armada forward. In the absence of official expansions, we'll be able to make standardized content moving forward. Yes, you can't take the sky from me. That's right, Firefly. Pour one out for Firefly. But I also want to talk about Star Wars Legion because, and I guess X-Wing too, for that matter, because I've had a couple of people suggest that the announcement for Armada is just like political speak for this is ending. Just please buy the reprints first so we can make as much money before it ends. And and that kind of syncs up to the way that they've kind of handled everything. Like with all the Wave 10 hype and all the stuff that everything has been going on for the last 9 months, 10 months or whatever, they knew. They didn't just decide today that they're not. It's not like new information to them that there's nothing new that's coming, right? So what does this mean for X-Wing and Legion also? So it's interesting because do they intend to make new X-Wing products? I've had some people suggest that X-Wing's not doing particularly well. I mean, yeah. And by the way, if you guys are hanging out, if you want to toss the video a like, a share, or any of that good stuff, that's cool. I think that helps it. I don't know exactly. I'm not an algorithm scientist, but I think that's going to let the stream potentially reach more people, and we can have more folks in chat and all that good stuff too. So. But yeah, so how's it going, everybody that's in chat today? We got a lot of people. We got Jason, Brian, Broken Legion of Gamers, Christina, Big Ben. We've got Christian, Mark, Kaysen. I might get some names wrong. Jared, Timothy. A good name, Timothy. Andrew, Cononbot 2000, and Chandler. What's going on? What's going on, dude? So Chandler posted a really awesome. If you guys haven't seen Brace for Impact, he had one of the best takes from the Armada news. So we're gonna get to the Armada stuff in just a little bit. So. Can you explain what caused all of this? I'm fairly new to Armada and was just getting into the Clone Wars. I'm going to talk about it in more detail a little bit later, Andrew, but basically Friday evening, Atomic Mass Games put out a statement, an image on their social media like Twitter and Facebook that says, we are not currently developing any more Armada content. But we are planning to support Armada with organized play and prioritizing reprints of existing product. If this changes, we will let you know. So basically, that kind of set off all the alarms. Just wait, no more new content, and then that's what kind of led to everything. So, but we're going to talk more about that. But let's talk about Legion first, because we've got some pretty cool things for Legion to talk about. So let's I want to kind of dive right in to, we've been having a lot of Legion. Oh, by the way, do you guys like my background? Isn't that funny? I got the little double criticals flying around in space. I did some work. I don't know if you guys have noticed. I've been like making little changes and stuff like that. Some people, I don't know if you guys usually watch my regular videos like all the way until the very, very end, but I've been like sneaking like little things into the very, very end, like the last like second or two of my videos. So I, and I think only like 2 or 3 people I've even noticed like the little nonsense stuff that I put at the end of my. I always used to end my videos with. I always used to end all of my videos with, and as always, have a great day. I would always say that, and I was like, that's such a stupid catchphrase. And not that I don't want you to have a great day, but the only reason I came up with that is because I didn't want to say may the force be with you, because like all the Star Wars YouTubers would say that. So I decided I wanted to do something different, but I couldn't come up with anything, so I just started 17 hats. Brian knows. Okay, Brian, there you go. 17 hats, right? And the interesting thing is it's something different every time. So yeah, so there's little like kind of Easter eggs and stuff at the end of stuff. But yes, and Big Ben knows what I'm talking about too. All right, so let's talk about Legion. We've been getting some Legion spoilers. Is Legion going to continue to get new content? Is X-Wing going to continue to get new content? End the video with "This is the way." Oh, yeah, that's cool, but I've already kind of started something else, and I think I'm going to keep going in that direction at least for now. But yes, "This is the way" is not terrible. It's certainly not terrible. I don't think it stacks up with what I'm currently doing right now. So we know that X-Wing at least has speaking of "This is the way," we know that the Razor Crest is still coming for X-Wing. I think there's at least one other ship coming. So it sounds like AMG took like the next X-Wing wave and kind of is spreading it out into like 2 expansions here, 1 huge ship here, this other thing there. So I think they're taking that whole wave and spreading it out. And I think after that wave, then we're going to see. I wouldn't be surprised if X-Wing ended up getting an kind of end of new product notification as well. I would not be surprised. Especially, and I'm going to say this double hard, especially if at Mini Stravaganza, Atomic Mass Games gives us a new game announcement. Because then that might mean that all those new developers that they hired on, like, oh, he's going to be the X-Wing guy and he's going to be the Legion guy, that they're really just working on the new game also. Especially if whatever the new game is, if it has a release schedule equivalent to Marvel Crisis Protocol, which is out of this world. I just picked up 4 new heroes today, or I think they're villains, but yeah, it's kind of out of control. The crazy amount of content they do for Marvel Crisis Protocol. And I'm like, really? You couldn't make anything new for Armada? You guys make a new Marvel Crisis character every single day, probably. Like you guys come up with, like, you wake up and you're like, I woke up, I've got 4 more characters already blueprinted. Let's get them down. We got to get them released this week. They're insane how fast they're pumping out content. You couldn't just give us 1 more wave of Armada? All right. Anyway, but in Crisis, Big Ben, you are right. Crisis Protocol is very fun. Timothy says Armada 2.0. Wow. Mark says, "Go. I have spoken." Interesting. No, so Brian says, I sure hope it's not the end of X-Wing. What will I do with 600 ships? Well, I knew getting into X-Wing, and I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be the end of X-Wing. They do have Michael Plummer, who's working on X-Wing right now, so he might be trying to design another wave. Let's see. X-Wing's got a lot, though. Like, X-Wing has a lot. And I feel... Chandler says MCP is game development strapped to a rocket. That's pretty much, yeah, that's an appropriate analogy. They're like a quintuple crit. No, that's silly. All right, anyway, I guess we'll have to wait and see what's in store for X-Wing. I know that there's not a whole lot of stuff that we still know that's coming, and there probably isn't that much more for X-Wing. But I've heard rumors that they're just trying to sell off all the existing stock, and they've been kind of instructed to just keep the hype going just long enough to sell enough stuff to make a profit. And that kind of explains, and I don't know if that's exactly true or not, but that does kind of explain their behavior. It's at least one explanation for waiting until Wave 10 has kind of been out and sold enough to be like, okay, hey, there's nothing new. I'm like, well, you couldn't have told us that before. Like, how many people bought into the Clone Wars, thinking that there'd be new stuff, and then you're like, oh, by the way, guys, there's nothing else, So that's kind of a, it's kind of a bummer. But so we'll see. I mean, they're keeping the hype going for the other games. Maybe if they do the same thing for X-Wing, then it's really But it might also be that they don't like doing pre-painted ships. So maybe Legion has the best feature. Legion. So now we're going to get into Legion because I've got some stuff I want to talk about for the next two expansions, and then there's a whole other wave on top of that. So Legion has a lot of stuff. Alex Davey designed the current wave. That we're going to see the Kashyyk wave, and we still have 2 more vehicles that are going to be coming out. We've got the N99 Persuader class tank, and also the Swamp Speeder. So I have graphics today. Today I've got graphics. Will we ever get TIE bombers in X-Wing 2.0? They're first order bombers coming out right now. No, you just buy 1.0 stuff. I don't think they're going to reprint any more stuff for X-Wing in the 2.0. And the reason I say that is they stopped doing that even when it was under FFG. Like, they stopped that pretty early on. And I'm guessing there's a big whole drama story, and maybe lots of drama stories with X-Wing and X-Wing 2.0, and then the reprints and like all the promises that were made and then broken. Like, there was a ton of broken promises with X-Wing, right? Like, you're not gonna have to, every card will be available for all factions. You won't have to buy a cross faction anymore. Yeah, right. That lasted all of 5 minutes. I mean, I think in the very first wave, as soon as like in the very first wave, there was problems with that. Like, Maul wasn't available. To Rebels, even though the Rebels can use Maul if they've got Ezra in a list and things like that. But then. But now almost every single wave has brand new stuff, and like how much stuff came out that's like TIE specific that didn't come in Imperial expansions, So there's lots of broken promises with 2.0, and one of those is that they were going to reprint everything. Also with the huge ships, like we still haven't seen that Raider. What is going on with the Raider 2.0? Like, they supposedly have a whole warehouse full of them. I don't know what's going on there. Like, the week it was supposed to release is when they canceled it. So I don't know what happened with X-Wing 2.0. So that's why I kind of think AMG may have been instructed to just cut their losses, sell everything that's coming out in the pipe, and just tell people that you have a lead X-Wing developer. And like, maybe Michael Plummer was brought on for something else altogether. And then he's just like, hey, just tell people you're working on X-Wing stuff. And then, you'll work on like a new scenario where, like, next mini extravaganza, like X-Wing live event, everybody gets to turn 1 dice to a crit on every attack. Boom, then see what happens. Done. Content developed. Now keep working on the side project. That's just my conspiracy theory. But Legion has a lot more stuff. So we've got this whole wave. Alex Davey designed this whole wave. Luke Eddy was working on a whole nother wave. And apparently AMG kept Luke on just long enough for him to finish his wave. And he did kind of tell us all of that there is even more stuff that he designed that is coming. This wave was Alex Davey's design. Luke's wave is coming up next. And it's gonna be interesting. That's all I'm gonna tell you about that. But yeah, so let's talk about these guys because AMG hasn't like officially unveiled the Persuader tank or the Swamp Speeder yet. So yeah, so two vehicles, right? We don't know anything about them yet. Although here's the things that we can assume. So I want to talk about like what these things might be because everything else in this wave looks super cool. Looks super cool. I do think that the Persuader tank, I'll talk about this guy first. I think he's going to have some exhaustible stuff. I think he's going to have some cards that exhaust, and I think that's going to synergize directly with the new cards we just saw from the Super Tactical Droid that let a unit that you give an order to recover. So I think he might have weapons that aren't cycle-specific weapons. Or maybe he'll have, because he's supposed to have, 3 weapons. Right? He's got missile launchers, he's got a blaster, and he's got an ion cannon. So what if he's got, what if he has an Arsenal 3? And maybe he only has 1 gun. Arsenal 3, right? You want to give him cycle, right? So you give him a missile, right? Or an ordnance, I should say. And maybe you want to give him a hard point for an ion cannon, or maybe you can swap it around with some variation or whatever. Maybe you want to give him 3 guns, and maybe you like, do I recover and get the cycle back? Oh, now you can get a free recover with, So maybe you have some options on how you want him to shoot. Or maybe he's got a keyword that maybe gives him the ability, an extra arsenal. Like maybe there's different configurations. Like you can run him, like, he's going to have a smaller shot, or no, he's going to have a stronger shot. I think that's realistic. But I also think that he's going to have transport. I think he's going to have a light transport open or something like that. Either light transport or just transport open, because light transport is the specifically 1 miniature, and it looks like, even in this picture you can see there's 4 B1 battle droids on that side and potentially 4 on the other side, so he can fit a whole unit of small base miniatures on there. So I think you give him transport 1 open. I don't think you have to worry about putting like an E-web on there, because I don't think there's a support that can really go on him. Wouldn't it be cool to put droidicas on this thing though? That's a cool idea. That's a really cool idea. You didn't have to be, no, but they're not droid troopers. So you'd have to, I don't think the Separatists have any droid troopers that are too big to go on him. So, Emily says, if the next wave is Luke's doing, I want to buy up the stuff in his support, but at the same time, I really do really want to give AMG my money after they have done to him and other FFG employees. Sure. I understand that, but to be fair, I don't think any of this is AMG's fault directly. I think all the stuff is all corporate decisions. There was a big investment company that bought Asmodee. Since Asmodee bought FFG, they prepped and sold Asmodee to a company. And that happened at a time when the games were skyrocketing. X-Wing and Armada and all those were doing really, really well. That company then resold Asmodee to this French company like POI or PLI or something like that, Investments or whatever. And they overpaid. They paid something like $1.6 billion or something like that for Asmodee. And as soon as they did, it tanked. And so everything since then, and we've seen this like with all the layoffs and everything. We got a super chat from John Smith. What's going on, John? Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the channel support, brother. I appreciate that very much. Super chats make a big difference. They definitely help me out, so thank you for that. You're my hero, brother. He says, hey, buddy, hope you're feeling better. This is the inherent disconnect between lifestyle games and financial requirements being driven by Asmodee. Yes, it's definitely by Asmodee, but also from a certain degree, Asmodee is corporate owners who kind of just want Asmodee to eventually become profitable enough to resell and recoup their lost money. Unfortunately, that just doesn't seem like that's going to happen. And I don't know if this company is going to eventually just say, you know what, forget it. I guess we'll just keep this company. The best thing right now, I think, would be for them to break up Asmodee and sell off the individual studios to other companies that actually are in the business of games. It's kind of, I would equate it to the housing market. I don't know how many people here are in the business of either own a home or are looking at buying homes or are just familiar with that whole market. But in my neighborhood, people are buying up all the houses. And what happens is they buy them up, rip them all out, you know, replace the carpeting, replace the bathrooms, kitchens, whatever, what have you, and then they resell them for even more because the market's going crazy right now. And that's always a bummer because, like, you know, so then a lot of times somebody else will buy it just to rent to a bunch of college students or something like that. And so you have renters who come in and live next to you, and renters typically don't care that much about the property, so maybe they don't mow their lawn, and they bring the whole neighborhood's value down. But if you're a neighbor and somebody buys a house next to you, the best case is if it's somebody, like, especially like maybe a new family or something like that, or somebody who wants to own a home, somebody who bought that house because they want to own a home. And because then they take care of it, and they care about the neighborhood, and they care about the house, and then they care about being your neighbor, right? And so that usually makes for a really quality neighbor, and that usually makes for a really good neighborhood. The reason I bring that up is because that's a good analogy for what I think needs to happen with companies like FFG and AMG. If Asmodee were to get broken up and then sold, then potentially Atomic Mass Games now, or it could have been FFG, could get sold to a company that's actually interested in making quality games. There's not that many that aren't really like corporate and profit driven. You know, I mean, of course, everybody's got to have profits. But yeah, so that's kind of what would be really nice. But until that happens, like, it's out of almost everybody's hands. So all the folks at AMG, you know, they may not have been happy, and I can't blame them. You know, I talk about Will Schick, like, painting all of his Star Wars minis pink, and I'm like, that sounds to me like he doesn't do that with Marvel Crisis Protocol, right? He doesn't paint pink, pink Spider-Man or pink Punisher, right? Like, he does only the Star Wars characters in pink, and it almost makes me think that he was so upset at having to take on Star Wars and losing his position as head of studio for Simone to come over there. He was so upset with Star Wars coming in that he's like, you know what? Fine, I'll do it, but I'm not going to be happy about it. And oh, by the way, all those Star Wars streams that I'm contractually obligated to do, you didn't see what colors I have to use. How can I really piss off Star Wars fans? I know I'm going to make everything pink, you know, or whatever, like, as if pink was an insult. But I mean, that's just something that I'm guessing. Or maybe he just really is in love with pink. I don't know the guy. I met him once, and he seemed cool, but I don't know. I mean, that's just a thought. All I've got is guesses, since they don't really communicate very well. But so back to Legion, and I know I missed some of you guys' chat. Sorry. Yeah, he just painted a Y-wing pink and black, right? And that was the sky is not falling, guys. Right after they announced, oh yeah, the sky's totally falling. Well, like, you know what? Skies are overrated. I don't need skies. You can't take the sky from me. When do you think Republic Commandos will drop? Oh man, I think that's something that they're probably going to start working on now. I'm not going to explain exactly why, but yeah. So I want to talk a little more about the N99 Persuader tank, and then the infantry support platform, or the Swamp Speeder, and then we'll move on to Armada, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So I think that this is going to be also a fast vehicle. They're described as being fast and being able to both drive on water or traverse virtually any type of terrain. And of course, you can see that with that big track, that centrally located track in the middle of the platform to help them climb over anything. So I think they're definitely going to be a ground vehicle, but I think that they're going to have the ability to either traverse terrain very, very easily, or destroy terrain. Like, they talk about a barricade destruction system. And I'm thinking to myself, wouldn't that be really cool if this thing could roll over and destroy barricades? Because that's how they're described on, like, the Wikipedia page, or the Star Wars Wikipedia or whatever. But also, that would synergize with being in the same wave as Yoda, because Yoda places barricades and can move barricades. And if this guy's answer is, instead of creating barricades, I will destroy barricades, that would be really cool. I want to hear what you guys think about that. My prediction, and I don't know, I didn't playtest any of this stuff. I stopped playtesting Legion right after the Clone Wars core set. So everything like from like Wave 2 or the two Phase 2 clones and beyond, I didn't do that. I just did the core set, and then pretty much everything before that. I came in to playtesting right after the core set and Wave 1 were finalized. So I didn't get any real input on the ATST, but stuff after that. So, and that was fun. A lot of work though, a lot of work. But yeah, so that's what I think. I think it's going to maybe be able to destroy barricades, and then pretty strong frontal firepower, and yeah. So let's see. Do you think they resent the lines because it competes with the Crisis protocol? Maybe, but those were around first. I think they just didn't like having told, oh, by the way, instead of one game you have to support 4, and also those games aren't going to be yours because you'll never get credit for them because other people created them. You know, like when you create something, this is my project. Oh, well, you have to take on these other ones too that all have balance issues or existing. You know, I think they weren't crazy about that. And also, by the way, you're demoted. You're no longer in charge. You're now number 2 as opposed to number 1. Like that's got a sting, to be honest. Let's see. Jared says, what I think is interesting is that I was contacted by one of the Asmodee knockoff FFG studios to see if I was open to convention booth work. Looks like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. Yeah, I don't know what kind of conventions they're going to right now or doing stuff with right now. They said they weren't going to go to Gen Con. So maybe they're looking to, after Gen Con stuff, like maybe Adepticon. I mean, maybe by April, they're thinking it's going to be... I think that could be a possibility, by April. I don't know. I know one of the big things with me not wanting to do a whole lot of in-public stuff right now, and definitely not doing a convention. I'm supposed to go see Unleash the Archers in a couple of weeks, like my favorite band right now. They're coming to Orlando, and I'm not going to go. I bought tickets, and I'm just not going to go because I don't feel like I don't want to go into this super crowded place, and end up catching a variant of COVID and bringing it home to my kids, even with a mask, even being vaccinated and stuff. So I'm like, I don't know what it's going to be like, come Adepticon, come April. It might be better, might be worse. I don't know how conventions are going. I miss conventions though. I miss conventions. We got Gen Con coming up soon. It's going to be another digital Gen Con. I'm done. I'm tired of digital convention. But yeah, to be fair, I don't like being forced to do stuff that I don't want to do. Yeah, of course. Send me a subspace message with the details. Do you think they'll ever release larger walkers like tanks in Legion? I think that's a possibility. I will say this: AMG has done some pretty big things, like their terrain for Marvel Crisis Protocol. Like have you seen like the new the city buildings and stuff like that? They've released gigantic stuff. I think they could totally do a walker. What I'm afraid they might do is release like a downed AT-AT or an ATTE as a terrain piece. And while that's cool, that's already been done so many times. I'm like, all right, well, why don't you give me one that's standing up? But I mean, they could do it. It's possible. Link says, I think the SSD was the worst option for FFG to make and cause more issues production-wise than was needed for the studio. That's possible. I know it did cause a lot of issues, but I loved it. I still love it. I'll always be grateful to have an SSD. I think it's the most beautiful thing ever. But at the same time, yeah, maybe it should have charged. It's so hard to know, because I know for me, because as much as I love games like Armada and games that have really huge minis and stuff like that, I know that my threshold for what I would be, what I have been willing to pay for an SSD if it came down to it, it was much higher than the $200. I would have probably paid up to $500 for something like that if they had to, if it was that or not have it, just charge that thing and finish paying it off later, because I still love running the SSD. It's one of my favorite moments in gaming ever was getting that SSD for the first time. So yeah. Origins will be in person. Interesting. So all right, let's move on. We got the Swamp Speeder. Also, and this one is with the infantry support platform, they call it. This is an interesting one also because it's barely. I don't even know if you really see it on screen or if it was just kind of in the background because most of the images of it are really, really drawn or bad. This is one of the best images you can find of it on the internet right now. but it's basically like a speeder. It's kind of like it's based on a bark speeder. Obviously, you can see it holds two dudes strapped in. It has a little bit of room on the side, so I wonder if this might be the Republic's like another carrier option. I wonder if this will have like light transport to hold just a single mini, kind of like how the land speeder for the Rebels holds just one mini. This might be something like that. I'm not really sure if it's going to have that, if it's going to have something kind of like that. It has the big old turbofan on it, and yeah, it's I think it's going to be an interesting one. I really don't know. I mean, I expect it to be a support. And here's an interesting thing. It's designed to support infantry. That's why it's not called a swamp speeder, but rather an infantry support platform. Well, wouldn't it be interesting if this was a support in the game that had fire support? Wouldn't that be cool to actually give, a support vehicle fire support? I think that could be pretty fun, But yeah, I like that would be a cool way for it to actually support infantry, or it might have some other things like Inspire and things like that. It could. Inspire would be a good way for it to support stuff. And William says, "Hey, I love your content. Sad about the Armada news. Did I already miss Armada stuff? No, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're still talking about Legion right now, but yeah. So I really don't. I have less predictions about this other than that it should have some way to support actual, phase 1 and phase 2 clones on the ground. I think one way of doing that is by giving it fire support, especially if it's going to come out with Wookiees, because in the Wookiee wave, right? If this usually stuff within a wave works together. Well, if you were going to run Wookiees, maybe maybe the Wookiees wouldn't have as many options for fire support. But yeah, so like I don't know, and I also don't know if it's going to have some kind of way to say, hey, you don't need to run that many core, or something like that. I don't think this one would have that. I think there's still if there's still some stuff from the Fluttercraft that haven't been spoiled yet. I'm not sure exactly what cards might be remaining for that, but I'd really be interested to see if if there's not some kind of way to run all Wookiees. So that'll be a really fun thing to see if they do that, because the droids are certainly getting kind of like an AI sub-faction, like benefits to not running any organics. And it'd be kind of cool if there were benefits to not running any non-Wookiees in a list. So we're going to go ahead and let me turn that off. We're not doing luxury playstyle stuff right now, but yeah, let's go ahead and start talking about Armada. So I'm going to pull up the notice here, because it's I want to make sure I get the wording specific, right? Let me copy that. I will go ahead and throw it up on screen, as a matter of fact, because I think it's important to get it accurate. So we'll talk more about this, because I talked about this the other night, but to be fair, I had a little bit to drink that night. I had done that, and because I was already going through some stuff too, and it's funny because my stream wasn't even all that bad. I was upset. I was definitely disappointed and even sad, and you certainly, of course, you have a right to be, but yeah, it's funny. There's so many people like right now saying, well, you know what, you should have been more positive or more optimistic, and I'm like, you know what, I'm human too, man. Give me a chance. To grieve before you start with the judgment. So here is the statement. So this is what happened Friday. AMG released. As we move into 2022 and beyond, we are excited to continue support of Star Wars Armada by prioritizing reprints of existing products and through organized play initiatives. However, we currently do not have any new Armada products in development. We will provide additional information as it becomes necessary. So that's the announcement. So a lot of folks are saying, "Oh, what? All right." So I want to talk about like the whole spectrum. There's definitely the Armada is dead initiative, and I want to talk about that first, because it's so tiresome hearing Armada is dead. Armada is dead. First off, I've always said this for any game that's been canceled. Dead only means nobody's playing it. So as long as you're still playing it, now it might be kind of dead in a certain community, but for some people, like there's definitely some trolls out there that just want to throw stones and be like, ha ha. I've definitely got people that try to troll me over stuff like that because they know that I'm a big Armada fan. But it's really frustrating when people are just like, oh, Armada's dead, and I'm like, well, it's not. They're still reprinting it. But at the same time, I also see the writing on the wall here. But I'll get to that in a minute. But even if they said, we're not reprinting anything, we're never going to make anything else, we're ending organized play support, and we're removing the name Armada from our website or something like that. Even if they said that, it still wouldn't be dead as long as we still want to play it. And on top of that, we're going to be moving forward with the community project. I'll talk more about that towards the end of the video. So Armada has died so many times. It's been very slow many times. That's for sure, Agent J. It's been but yes, be real interesting. All right, so my homebrew project, Anakin as a commander, same wording, similar to Vader. I think the Republic desperately needs that. I think the Republic definitely needs some type of ship-based attack offensive commander. Yeah, and Anakin's the perfect option for it. I would have him probably somewhere kind of close to Vader, but not worded exactly the same. He would probably be a little different, but yeah, I think there's definitely the end of OP killed Rune Wars in 2019. Yeah, Rune Wars was rough. All right, so Armada's certainly not dead, but at the same time, there's other people on the other end of the spectrum saying, well, they're definitely making more Armada product. All they're saying is they don't have any new products in development right now, but they're going to tell us as soon as they do. And so they kind of they interpret that to be like, well, that just means like not next year, as we move into 2022 and beyond, but so they talk about 2022. The reason they mention 2022 is because it basically says, you could infer that they mention 2022 because that's when they have no, that's the year they want you to keep in mind as they have no Armada product. Although it does say and beyond, right? So I've seen a lot of people that are saying, well, this means we'll see new Armada product in 2023. And I want to stress that this does not mean that. Please don't get your hopes up. It's okay to remain hopeful, but I don't want you to... I want you to basically brace for... I got a hair that's like driving me crazy. It's one of my wife's hairs, I think. All right, there we go. And then, it was right here, and the light was catching it. But I don't want you to set yourself up for this hope. It's 2023 is our year, and then it comes, and then there's nothing, and then in 2024 you're like, they lied. And no, they're not saying that there's going to be new Armada in 2023. Of course, that's possible. No matter what happens, they can always change their mind, right? They can always change their mind. But this statement to me says that there's no products in development. It means that they're also... It doesn't say they're not planning on making a new product, but to me it says they're not planning on making a new product. Because here's the thing. If they do have a plan, if I'm AMG, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to have any new product in 2022, but we do have a plan. We have a roadmap to spend 2021 and 2022 on X-Wing, and then start working on the next wave of Armada. Then this statement would not exist if I had a plan to get a new Armada expansion in 2023. I wouldn't have put this statement out there. So my interpretation of this statement is there is no plan to ever make another Armada product. Now, they put the caveat in there that can absolutely change at some point. But there also is the possibility that they just want to keep hope alive enough for people so they'll continue to buy reprints. Well, either way, I don't care because I'm going to continue to support this game, and I'm going to continue to play this game. A little verbal diarrhea right there. But yeah, I'm going to continue to support the game, continue to talk about the game. I've got a lot more videos that I still need to make, and this is actually a really good time to revamp buyer's guides and intros and tutorials and how to plays and all of those types of videos that were needing constant refreshes every time a new wave came out. So this is a good time for purposes like that. It'll be real easy to steer new players towards new products or towards the product they need to get them started, because that the stuff isn't going to change. So that's good. The unfortunate thing is, we need a little bit more. Now, this is very different than them saying this game is sunsetting. Sunsetting's a nice way to say end of support. It's just totally dead. Now, FFG at least has done cancellation notices in the past. And usually when they end a game, when they just say this game is done, they do things differently than this. So it may not be done, but I think they're trying to cover themselves very, very much corporate-like. And be like, look, basically my takeaway from this is we're probably done with Armada, but we'll see. That's kind of how I read this. This is a sign to retailers and distributors: sell off your existing product and do not reorder. I don't know. Well, Imperial Assault is a good thing. I'm gonna come back to Imperial Assault because that's another one that's still hanging on. There was supposed to be more Imperial Assault coming soon. I think in 2023 we're going to see more Imperial Assault, because they've flat out said they're not done with Imperial Assault. They said this 2 years ago at Gamma. Steve Horvath said the story for Imperial Assault is not done. Absolutely not. So there's going to be more Imperial Assault. Or at least there was. Like I said, everything changes. Fantasy Flight Games was supposed to be doing that. Fantasy Flight Games split off into Fantasy Flight Board and Card and then Fantasy Flight Miniatures, which we never knew about Fantasy Flight Miniatures, and then all of a sudden they took that apart and dismantled it and sent it over to AMG. Plans change all the time. As a matter of fact, there was obviously plans to make more Armada, as referenced by cards like Commander Wolf. That's like, hey, and all your guys who have Assault already, well, there aren't any, right? Or all the keywords, all those traits that we see on ship cards that don't do anything. Oh, I'm glad this ship has the Senate trait, because that's really important. Well, there was a roadmap. There was a roadmap for Armada. Maybe I can get some of the old Armada devs on, and we can talk about what some of their plans were at some point. Like, I wonder if that would be kind of cool. So maybe Michael Gurnas, Brooks Pfluger-Levitt, maybe Frank Brooks, maybe any of the folks who worked on Star Wars Armada. If you guys are watching, I'd love to have you guys on sometime and talk about maybe the way that you had perhaps saw Armada going, because that's kind of a cool thing, and maybe that will influence some of the community-driven stuff as well. Or if you'd rather just see what the community comes with, independent of your plan too, that's also a pretty cool option. But either way, let's move forward a little bit, because other games, when they've been canceled, when they're dead, actually got a pretty good send-off, right? So I'm gonna cite a couple of examples. The Star Wars card game, the LCG. This one was one of the first Star Wars game to get canceled that I knew of. When they canceled it, they said, look, we're going to end this game, but we've got one more wave coming out. And we're going to still do previews. We're still going to release the wave. There'll still be at least one more World Championship. We got more coming. And I'm like, oh, okay. So at least we know. So like, hey, or maybe I won't buy this wave. Or maybe I'll buy this wave because this is it, and then it'll be a complete game. Destiny died way too early, and that was really tragic for Destiny players. I had stopped playing Destiny already, so that one didn't hit me as hard personally. But I mean, the game only had like 5 expansions, something like that. But here's what they did for Destiny. They're like, okay, guys, Destiny's done, but here's the next set. It's still going to release. On top of that, we're also going to release the expansion that was planned after that as well. And I think they did something like they gave that out for free or something like that, or as a print and play or something. I forget exactly how it was distributed or whatever. But basically, 2 more expansions, tons more content, and now you're done. So plenty for you to play with. Now, think about that. And then, like, imagine with Armada. Like, what if, I brought this up in Discord last night. I'm like, imagine if we got 2 more waves, as a goodbye gift. Like, all right, 2 more waves, and then we're going to sunset Armada. And somebody goes, oh, you mean like the Clone Wars? And I'm like, oh, ouch, ouch. That hurt. That hurt. So we have some fun. If you guys aren't already in Discord, we have some. We've got links to the Discord down in the video descriptions, and we got other links too if you're interested in any shirts or other stuff. But yes, so definitely so check out those links. The set rotation killed Destiny. That hurt it. But another thing that really hurt Destiny was the initial supply problem. We just didn't have product at the beginning, and that's hard. You know, that's really hard. So that was one of the things I remember on launch day. I could only get 2 boosters for Destiny. You know, I got a starter and 2 boosters, and I'm like man, I just can't buy stuff. You know, like they had big problems with Destiny. So, but then they went the other way with Keyforge, and Dylan says almost at 50K subscribers. That's right. I'm actually I've been forgetting about that. Yeah, I'm like less than 1,000. And so 50,000 subscribers. We're getting pretty wild. Chandler says, I remember wanting to play Destiny, couldn't find a single pack. Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. I don't know. So all of those things hurt Destiny. But you know, and then of course the rotation. People don't want to be told they can't use their existing cards anymore. Nobody likes that. Then that also meant that nobody would ever buy old product. Like there's stuff from like the second. There was such a shortage on the first wave, so that when they eventually did like the second wave of stuff, there was so much. Like there's still boxes and boxes on shelves at stores and stuff like that for like subsequent waves, because they thought like, oh man, there's crazy demand. Let's buy. Like people had already given up. You know, hey Hoth Commander, what's going on? So now imagine if Armada got the send off that Destiny did, like 2 more waves. Like that would be amazing. And so now the interesting thing there is that we you know, FFG was the one who actually did those send-offs. They said, hey, we're ending this game, but here's the next expansion, or here's the next 2 expansions, right? And so it was nice having that upfrontness. AMG could just have a completely different way of doing things, and they might prefer to lie, or they may just wait. They may work on a final, like a sunset expansion. Like I think that would actually be a really cool way, because look, certain games don't go on forever, and wouldn't it be nice if AMG did work on like a farewell, kind of a sunset wave of this game? I think that'd be cool. We got a super chat from Tim. Tim Highland sends a super chat over to the channel. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate you, brother. Great name, by the way. Tim's representing the Tims. Tim says they also need to be real about expectations. If they over-deliver, great. If I were AMG trying to staff and learn 3 new games, I might put 1 on hold. That's absolutely fair. And so that's a very reasonable and fair assessment. I have no problem with them putting a game on hold. But I do feel like while this announcement seems very honest and upfront, I feel like the timing of it contradicts the honesty, right? Like it's like, boy, you sure did wait until everybody bought into the Clone Wars before you told us something that you've known for 9 months, right? You know, and I mean, I guess it makes business sense, because if I inherited all these games and like I've got another 4-ship wave, a big wave getting ready to release, I'm probably not gonna announce some damning news like right before the wave releases, but that would have been nice. But I guess what annoys me is that like just a week prior, Will Schick kind of implied that the sky wasn't falling, and then this comes out, which sort of implies that it is, right? And I guess we have different definitions of sky. You know, for him maybe it's Skywalker, and for me maybe it's excuse me while I kiss the sky. All right, I'm gonna stop singing now. But yeah, so the timing was a little bit strange. So thank you for the super chat, Tim. Appreciate it. But yes, so what if they do that, right? What if they do put a game on hold? So because I want to start talking about like community-based expansions and stuff like that, because I know I've had a lot of people say, hey, I've created stuff. Everybody from like modelers, 3D printing folks, to artists, to people who were trying to design their own ship cards and things like that. Problem is, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of custom homebrew Armada solutions out there. And to me, that's fine. That's cool. I've never been a big homebrew person, primarily because it doesn't have as much of an impact. Like, it's cool to make your own stuff, like to play at your house. But what if you wanted to go play at a store and you're like, hey, we're going to do a homebrew tournament, and everybody brings their own katana fleet, but everybody's is totally different. Like, well, I made my dreadnoughts have blue dice. Well, I gave my dreadnoughts black dice that can attack at long range. Well, I gave my dreadnoughts purple dice. It's a new one that all has triple hits on it. So yeah, I'm exaggerating, but my point is there has to be standardization. One of the reasons that Armada works is because when we all go to the store, we're all playing the exact same rule set and designs, right? And of course, obviously, if somebody's that changes when they do like a second edition or something like that. So what I want to do is get one standard unified vision of a community-based expansion and release a wave under something like that we get lots of people. And I've started to talk to some people. I still have a lot more people I need to reach out to, but basically I want to get other folks on board. Anybody who has a voice in the community, other podcasters, other bloggers, other content creators. I'd like to get people like that on board. I'd like for something to be kind of universally promoted. I don't want this to be something that just I create. Because, look, I love this game. I love Armada. I could probably crank out a wave in one day if I had to. And it would be probably unbalanced, and it would be very limited because it would only be from my own point of view, right? And so we benefit, and I've done stuff like that. If you go to Crabbok.com, you've got other content for Armada that I've created. It's just homebrew stuff, and it's stuff. If you're looking for something, like I've got a titles expansion, the Nunchuck expansion that's on there. It's just a bunch of titles for every ship that was in the game up until before Wave 8. So it was more options for every ship, and that could be something, that ends up happening. It could be, if we just did titles for every ship, we wouldn't have to worry about anybody downloading any 3D printed stuff or anything like that. So like, there's all kinds of different, avenues that a community-based expansion could take place. But the important thing is that everybody recognize it, and hopefully everybody, is cool with using that as like the next step. The Council of, I think you meant to say Crabboks. The Council of Crab. No, I don't want to like take credit for something either. I think it should be something that that has like a lot of different people's input on it, and it shouldn't be. I don't want it to be like my expansion. Well, I'll admit there's a little part of me that thinks that would be really cool, but it's also a little conceited. So I don't think that that's the right answer. There you go, Bradley. But no, so I think something like that is kind of cool. But I know there's a lot of other people in the community that have really good ideas, and I really would love to have a gathering where we kind of leverage everybody else's ideas. But I don't want to do that just yet. I kind of want to wait till after the next mini extravaganza. We got a super chat from James Blackburn. What's going on, James? Thank you so much for the support, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat. He says, James says, thanks for the content and compassion. I try, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate your acknowledgement. I'm going to continue making more content, and I get that a lot of people are going through a hard time right now with all of this news and the uncertainty right now. And so that's one reason I don't want to, bring a community council together just yet, because there could be a very real chance that AMG sees all of our backlash. There's been a lot of it, and says, all right. They might clarify, because I'm of the mindset that Armada's in a pretty good spot right now. It's actually in a beautiful spot right now. It's a little incomplete, though. The Clone Wars factions still need a few things. I'd like a decision to be made on, hey, we've got all these keywords and traits for the Clone Wars ships. Are we going to do the same thing to the Empire and Republic ships? Empire and Rebellion ships. Should Empire and Rebellion ships also have traits? and have keywords? Should we have an Empire ship that has Bombard? You know, what does Bombard even mean, right? So I think that's definitely something to consider. But who knows, right? Keywords are the biggest loss for you. Absolutely, keywords are a huge loss. And they put them everywhere. And another thing, like, gosh, I would just love for AMG just to release, if it was about printing and stuff, just give me a card pack. Like, redo either. And I know people are divided on this, but like right now the game is in half, right? Because all the Empire and Rebel stuff is in the large ship cards. And then all the Republic and Separatist stuff is in the small ship cards that are double-sided, and I hate them, and people are getting the old style, like, reprinted and stuff like that. Like, let's pick one and redo it. All right? Have a reprint. We've already had a card upgrade pack. We also need that for Squadrons, potentially, with to reflect intel and changes like that. And we need it for the ship cards also. And to be honest, maybe the SSD should have a reprint too, because there's 3 different sizes of ship cards in this game right now. So I think, it's almost worthy of a 2.0. And maybe that's something that AMG wants to work on. Maybe they want to work on an Armada 2nd edition. I would have no problem with that. It might be a little bit of a hump to jump over, but I would take that in a heartbeat over doing the Imperial Assault route. And what is the Imperial Assault route? Well, that's just to be in limbo for a very long time. They still print it, though, so new people can still get involved in Imperial Assault. So that's kind of cool, There's that, I suppose. But, let's see. Jordan says, as someone who bought the core set 2 days ago, is it still worth investing into a full 400-point army, or should you wait for news? Oh, absolutely. First off, there's two things I want to say. Well, there's 2 things I want to say about that. The first thing is the game is great. It's absolutely great, and it's still, and it may always be my favorite game of all time. So of course it's worth. I mean, you buy a board game, right? You buy a board game, and you're gonna play it, and it doesn't matter if there's more expansions or not. It's a complete game, right? Armada, in a lot of ways, is a complete game. The drink of choice tonight is Glenlivet, 14-year, aged in a cognac barrel. That's the French Reserve, and it's Scotch for you guys who don't know Scotch, but yes, it's that's probably my favorite Scotch is Glenlivet, 14 years specifically. It's just really good. It's not. It's something I have only once in a while because it's a little on the pricey side, but it's really good, and it's not like it's at this sweet spot where anything more expensive doesn't really get me much more quality, So, but yeah. But the other thing I want to say is the minis are beautiful. So even if the game completely went away, you'd still left with something tangible. That's a great display piece. It's a great diorama piece. It's a great collectible to hold on to. You guys have noticed, like, I don't do a whole lot of, like, in-person X-Wing anymore. I've been doing virtual X-Wing. Because for whatever reason, I just have a harder time getting out. And, when I can, I would rather play Armada or Legion right now. Because I can play X-Wing at home, and it's, like, fly casual is a really cool thing. But I don't regret for 1 second having all of these X-Wing minis because they're gorgeous and they're collectibles, and I'm going to have them forever. We got another super chat from Sean Mullins. Sean, what's going on? Fist bump. Appreciate the support, brother. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for the super chat. Sean says, your videos are the reason I got into Armada. Thanks for keeping Armada vids and news going. Absolutely. I think there's, I'm going to say this. Even if our AMG hadn't said anything like this, there would still be Armada things to talk about. I'd still have Armada content because typically we go like a year in between waves, so it would already be like a long time before we had any Armada news, and I'd still be making Armada content. So now, in the idea that we might do a community-driven project, there could be way more Armada news because when things are kind of ready to be previewed, then we have a lot of stuff to actually preview and talk about, and play tests and battle reports featuring new stuff and all kinds of cool things like that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things. Like there was an interesting discussion just today in Discord about Lucre Hulks, right? Because a lot of people want Lucre Hulks, and that might not be the next Separatist ship. Like it doesn't have to be. And that's a really cool thing. It doesn't have to be. I mean, you can, but because like if you really, really want a Lucre Hulk, you could probably just run, a Providence that as a carrier and just put a Lucre Hulk on there. Like you can just totally do that to have the Lucre Hulk on the field, and it'll play, somewhat like that. You can do it, but and I'm okay. Like I think a Lucre Hulk should probably have squadron value of 5 or even 6. I think 6 would be a really cool number for a Lucre Hulk to have. But because it's so big, if it were in actual Armada scale, it might be too big to really do on a large base. Now, if it's going to be 2 bases side by side, then that might require some rules balancing, because that might make its turns extra crazy, right? So it might need it was even suggested it might need a custom base. If it needs its own new base, that's outside of the scope of a community project, because that I want everything to be accessible to everybody. So that means using the stuff you've already got. As a matter of fact, I want everything to use firing arcs that happen to already exist. At least at first. Maybe someday we'll, do something drastically different. But like, I would rather, a Lucre Hulk be on a large base, and we find another large base ship that has firing arcs that work. Maybe even an Onager's base. If we wanted to give it a 5-point arc. Just so you have those printed arcs. So you already have something you can do. You have the arcs that are going to be standardized across the board. So anybody that runs one, if they put an Onager base in there, they're all running the same thing, right? Something like that. So I think that would be fun. But you ignore everything else that's on the Onager base, right? You use you use the card. You just print out. All you should need to play is your own printer at home, and just about everybody has a printer. Or you can go to Kinko's for like 10 cents and print out all the ship cards and maybe the upgrades and stuff like that. So you reference the dice on the ship card. But I'm like, oh, I've got you double arced. Oh, are you sure? You're like, well, yeah, I'm using the Onager base, aren't I? That's kind of like one of the things that I think is really important, is that it's accessible to everybody. And trying to do some kind of custom base for a Lucre Hulk is problematic. The ignition arc could be a weak point in the Lucre Hulk. I think it would have a lower shield value for sure. I think it would have like only 1 shield there. But yeah, it's a cool thing. It's definitely a cool option. But yep. But yeah, there's a lot of possibilities there, and one of the things, the goal is make sure that everybody agrees to it, everybody has access to it. I would love to someday, if we go 2 years without any new content, then we can finally say like, all right, you know what, this new wave is ready to go now, boom, and everybody's like, oh, okay, we all agree that, this is the standard. Oh, we're playing the standard. So it's not like you go there and somebody's got their own, I made this at home. I'm like, no. We're playing this agreed upon, universally recognized rule system. Now, I don't necessarily know if we need to even change the rules either. So that's, I would prefer not to change any existing rules, at least on the very first wave of this, as a test, to try to keep it as accessible as possible. Because if we start changing rules, then that could because there's some rules that a lot of people would like to have changed, like being able to salvo an ignition attack if you happen to already be within range, right? Like, that's something that should be changed, but if we start changing things like that, it could be a slippery slope to, hey, this is a whole different rule set. The rules are really good right now. There's, like I said, 1 or 2 things that could use a tweak. But what are your thoughts on the Venator's Sfat versus the Onager's Ignition? While we're on that topic, I personally think the Sfat is much more better with the freedom of the side arcs to shoot as well. I think it's a balanced type of thing. It's I've run the Sfat. I gotta stop saying it like that. The Spat. I'm gonna call it the Spat. I've run it twice now, and and it seems pretty cool. It's I like the fact that the range isn't completely unreasonable, and so it feels like it's more balanced. Like I've run it twice. I think I've both won and lost games with a Venator running the spat, and that's cool. I know running onagers. I think I ran double onager once when they first came out, and like I was just completely leveling forces before they could even get into shooting range of me. And then even if somebody did survive to get in range of me, well, I'm still a large ship with a salvo and full shields and full health, you know. So yeah, it's rough. If you were to work out the keywords, whatever called in Armada the traits on the new ships, how would they work or contribute? Well, the keywords are only on the new ships. So yeah, well, obviously it would boil down to upgrades. Like, here's an upgrade that can only go on something with Senate, right? Because we already have a blueprint for kind of how the keywords should work, the traits. We do have like clone gunners and like the emergency droid repair supplies or something like that. So there's already a card for each faction that uses at least one trait, but there's a whole lot of other traits unused. And one of the really interesting ones for me is the Jedi keyword, because it really makes me want to have a Sith keyword. I would love to have a Sith keyword, and that could apply to the Empire also. And so now you could have maybe an upgrade that both the Separatists and the Empire can use if they happen to have a Sith ship. And what would be a Sith ship, right? Like maybe the Executor 2, Vader's flagship, might be a Sith ship. I know I'm putting a big pause in between Sith and ship. I'm really enunciating my words here. I could just say ship, but that's, yeah. So I have to put a space in there, because otherwise I'm going to say ship. Somebody's going to make a gif of that, and I'm going to regret it. But anyway, the ship, the Sith ship. But yeah, so I think that there's an option for that. Because what was Vader's command ships, right? The Devastator, which was an ISD-1. So that could be a keyword. Maybe you give the ISD-1 the Sith keyword, or maybe there's just a title. Maybe you errata the Devastator to give Sith to. I don't know. I'd rather not do that. But yeah. That's definitely something that could be done. That's another option. So, but there's a whole lot of things, and I think you also, when doing a community expansion, it helps to limit the scope. You got to set boundaries, otherwise you're never going to finish. So, I don't think in the first wave or something like that we're going to solve all these problems. I don't think we're going to solve, hey, how come the rebels and the Empire don't have traits on their stuff? I don't think we're going to solve that. I think we can put some upgrades for the Clone Wars factions that are that use traits. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing a turbo laser that says bombard only. I wouldn't mind seeing an ion cannon that says Jedi only, or something like that. And that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Because it wouldn't be able to go anywhere right now. So, unless of course you did a victory. A victory for the Republic, So yeah, there's definitely a lot of options. So that's something that's going to happen. Now I want to talk about the timeline. Like, when is this going to happen? Well, I'm going to continue to reach out to people. We'll be talking more about it over the coming weeks, but I don't want to officially start getting into full gear. I want to give it some time, because I want to see what they have to announce at the celebration, the mini extravaganza. We got another super chat from Peter Rankin. What's going on, Peter? Thank you for the super chat. Here's a fist bump for you. He says, if this is the end of Armada, do you think it could live on as fan-made stuff only? Thinking something like Empire at War mods? Well, I mean, that's kind of, I don't know if you just joined, but we've kind of been talking about that for about a half an hour. So yeah, it definitely could. And so I'm working on a plan to do that and bring people together to create more content. Starting with one wave, and based on its success, maybe another wave. I don't think we need, and honestly, I would look at doing a wave like maybe once every 6 to 9 months, maybe once a year. I don't want to fundamentally change, the landscape. I don't want to do drastic things. I would like for things to kind of feel natural and be, universally accepted. And whatever would be the right amount to keep people playing, because there's a decent number of stuff. I know the Clone Wars needs more right now, and that's another thing for scope. Do we just do another wave of just Clone Wars stuff to get those two factions balanced up to the Empire and Rebellion? Or do we do like a one ship for each, faction? Or do we do no ships for the first wave and just do some upgrade cards, And for me personally, and again, this wouldn't be only my decision, but I think ships would be important at least for the Empire. I'm sorry, at least for the Separatists and for the Republic. Because, look, we've already got models that some people have. Like a Republic Architans would be really, really easy to do. Everybody has Architans already. If you use the same firing arcs, you would only have to look at potential dice and upgrade changes and maybe even shield changes. You could look at some very subtle changes. And that sounds great, right? That sounds really groovy to me. Separatists have a little bit of a harder time on things. Bradley Morris says, do something like a meditation chamber as an upgrade for a faction to give Jedi or Sith into the fleet, perhaps. That's a very cool idea. Vader's had his chamber. The Jedi have their chambers. It could be an upgrade that says Jedi or Sith only. Like, that's a very cool thing. Yeah, no, I like that. And I like some of the other disclaimers that are out there, because there's other ways that they've sort of done keyword stuff a little bit, with like flagship only, or smaller medium ship only, or larger medium ship only, and things like that. So there's all kinds of different limiters that are out there. But I think the first wave of community-based content should be a little bit on the conservative side, trying not to get too far out of the box. I think that'll be a good way. You maybe take a few chances, but on the scale of 1 to 10, as far as how risky you want to go, I'd probably keep it at a 5 or maybe a 5.5. Maybe a 6, but I wouldn't want to go beyond that. I'd want to keep it very, very much to addressing what do the factions need right now. Where are holes in content? What are some specific things that we were definitely expecting? I was definitely expecting ETA 2s and LATs for the Republic in another squadron pack. Somebody with assault printed on them, so this way, Commander Wolf actually means something. I was expecting HMP droid gunships for the Separatists, and things like that. So you don't think the Onager needs a nerf? Oh, I don't know. And that could be a thing. There could be an upgrade that gives you extra defense against, and it wouldn't necessarily be an Onager nerf, but there could be an upgrade that gives you extra defense against either salvo attacks or ignition attacks. Wouldn't that be a cool defensive retrofit? It could be. Here's an idea. Maybe a 1 point. Or maybe a 2-point defensive retrofit. You may exhaust this card to cancel 2 dice during a salvo or ignition attack. Maybe it doesn't exhaust normally. Maybe it takes an engineering dial to unexhaust it or something or an engineering command to get it readied again. Or something along those lines. That might be a little too much. It might have to be more expensive than that too. But that's kind of the idea is because that could be something that's going to see more and more use. I would like to see a little more proliferation of salvo in the Rebel and Imperial fleets. A little more, not everywhere, but a little more. And that could be something that kind of helps bring Onagers back into balance a little bit, because this may be, this might be, if it's priced cheap enough, it might be a good competitor for the defensive retrofit slot. A lot of little things like that. Phoenix Games Australia says people are reading too much into the statement without the full story. It's not dead. My view that they are overwhelmed and are sorting priorities so all systems don't suffer. New gear will come. That's a very optimistic view, and I understand that view. If I didn't have other things going on, like if I didn't have other people, FFG people telling me that it was dead, I mean, and they say dead. Look, dead has a lot of different meanings, but what in the context that I've been told by other FFG people is that you won't see any more Armada products, basically. Of course, that's all subject to change, and it certainly could be that AMG, once they kind of kicked FFG people to the side, said, we're going to change our plans. We're going to keep Armada going, but it's not going to be for a while. My thought is, though, to be honest, if that's the case, if you do have plans for Armada eventually, I don't think you ever release a statement like this. I think there's only one reason to release this statement, and that's when you have no plans to ever make Armada stuff again, but you still have reprints coming out that you want people to buy. But that's just my opinion. I know I'm just one dude. Of course, I'm the dude on camera, so I know that my voice is obviously pretty loud right now. But I could be wrong. Look, I've been wrong plenty of times. But I think there's a lot of corporate speech in here. This was a very carefully crafted statement. And with that much care, I don't think you release a statement like that when you have a roadmap for Armada in 2023 or 2024. I think if you have a plan to do some more Armada development in 2023 or 2024, then you write this statement very differently. That's what I think. But that's going to do it for tonight. I'm still optimistic. We're gonna, and what I mean by that is we're gonna see. Maybe AMG will change their tune. It's certainly possible. And even if they don't, there's plenty of great content for this game. I've got so many fleets I haven't flown yet. I've got so many commanders for the Clone Wars and Wave 10. Wave 10's still fairly new. We've got a lot more Armada. I've got lots more promos. I'm gonna be putting up in Discord. I mentioned these in the last live stream. I didn't put them up yet. The X-Wing and TIE Fighter promos. Those are gonna go up in Discord tonight. For giveaways, so I'll be posting those in the giveaways channel. If you're not already in my Discord, check the links down in the description below. Mark Slater says it's a vague enough statement for them to change. It is, but generally corporate speech, you don't put out stuff that that you want to have to change, But at the same time, we still remain optimistic. We're still going to have more content. There will be more content one way or another. That's the promise. There will be more Armada content somehow. It may not be from AMG. I don't think it'll be from AMG. But we'll have it for you. One way or another. And there's already some more. If you go to Crabbok.com, how many of you guys haven't seen the Armada AI expansion? You can play against yourself. There's a space station mission on there for Deep Space Nine, where I have all the stuff that you can print out. It's basically, you don't even have to use a space station. You can just use the base. But the idea is there's a big space station, and there's a wormhole right behind the space station. And you've got to fly your fleet through the wormhole. And the station is trying to stop you. And the station has a few escort ships, but it has, but basically, like, the other player has a lot more points than the station player because they've got this station and they only have like maybe one or two ships. And you're trying to get through. So it's a scenario, but it's a really cool, like Deep Space Nine, like I need to get through the wormhole kind of scenario. And you get points based on every ship that you're able to get through the wormhole, and they get points based on every ship they kill and thus prevent from getting through the wormhole. And then there's also a nunchuck expansion with the new titles and stuff. And even if you're not going to use them, they might be cool to look through. So yeah, head over to Crabbok.com and check out that. I've already got 3, and those are just things that I came up with. Imagine what we're going to come up with when the community puts their minds together. It's going to be really exciting. So even if it's not from AMG, and honestly, like there's some Marvel Crisis Protocol content that's not that great, right? There's some, Like I'm really not thrilled with this whole Doctor Strange wave and stuff, you know. So like, what if they were to, let's just say they were to make another wave and they said, hey, let's apply our Marvel Crisis Protocol philosophy to it. What would it look like? It would be a little base, and it'd be a Star Destroyer on a rock. I'm gonna put a graphic together. It's like, here, hey AMG, here's how we can save Armada, and it's a Star Destroyer on a tactical rock on a base. But that's like that. It'd have to be unpainted also. You know, I think if they're, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if AMG comes out with a fleet-based game. Like, what if they did like an Armada 2.0 or a whole new game? But the ships are a little smaller, right? Like a lot of people, like Battlefleet Gothic. Have you seen that game? Like I'm taking a look at that now, and the ships are way smaller, and so you can actually have an armada on the battlefield. You know, like I wouldn't mind if they wanted to, like, because I like this type of gameplay, and of course I love Star Wars Armada, but you never really feel like you're flying an actual armada. You're more like flying just a little flotilla. So, you know. Maybe they're coming out with something else that's really cool. I can't wait to see, though. I mean, AMG's made some good games, or at least one good game, I should say. So let's stick with them. I'll keep covering all of this good stuff. I will talk to you guys later. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Brian Ludwig says, Tactical Asteroid. Absolutely. Thanks to my patrons. You guys are amazing. Always don't forget, keep the toasters out of your bathtub when bathing. Have a wonderful day.